by the 3 halves by the -2. 3 halves times -2 is -3. Okay, the y minus 1 just was kind of chilling out over there. Now, we need to add that 1 to the other side so that we just have y by itself. Okay, and then I'm going to pause right here and kind of say, I know that you could have gotten -2 as the y-intercept from the graph. That's not always going to be on a nice number, and it's kind of hard to tell if it's perfectly on -2 or if it's like -2 and the third. Okay, so don't always trust for sure that you know where it is on the graph. It's easier to pick a point that you know for sure and then use this. Okay, I'm also going to give you some graphs that don't have a nice y-intercept. So just kind of be familiar with that process. And now that we've done 2 problems, I'm just going to say that after you get everything plugged in, you're going to distribute the number in front, okay, and then add or subtract to get this number to the other side. That's it. It's not that hard to convert. You just distribute and then add or subtract. All right, using 2 points. So this one's kind of icky because you have to find the slope yourself first, meaning I need to do my change in y over my change in x. So my change in y is from 4 to 1, what's happening? It's going down 3. Okay, if you are not comfortable counting that in your head, take the second number and subtract the first one. So 1 minus -4. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing but with my x's. -1 to 1. What's changing there? It's going up 2. Or you could always do 1 minus -1, which turns into 1 plus 1, and that's 2. So this is just doing some mental math. This is typing it in a calculator, sort of. Okay, so this is my slope. I'm going to circle it for right now. It's not my final answer. That just means I have my slope, and now I can go plug it in my formula. I always choose the first point just by habit, but you could always choose this point if you wanted to, if you would rather deal with the 1s rather than the -1 and the 4. It's kind of up to you. So we have y minus 4 equals -3 halves x minus -1, which turns into plus. So you're just plugging it in the same formula. Y goes next to the opposite of the y value, which was 4, so now it's -4. X goes next to the opposite of the x value. It was -1, now it's +1. And then the slope goes in front of the parentheses. To get y by itself, you multiply that. This just makes -3 halves x. And then -3 halves times 1 is just -3 halves. Okay? And then I'm going to add that 4 to the other side. And you can decide how you want to type that in. -3 halves is -1.5 plus 4 is 2.5 or 2.5. Just be familiar with that because if you wanted to go graph this, you would have to start up at 2.5 and go from there. Okay, let's do one more from the slope and a point and from the line. The graph is pretty much the same thing as this, that's why I'm not doing 2 of them. So now we have the slope -3/5 and the point 4,7. Okay, so it's going to be y minus the y value, 7, equals the slope, parentheses, x minus the x value. Y minus the y value equals slope, parentheses, x minus the x value. multiply that number in front, negative 3/5 x, and then negative 3/5 times negative 4. A lot of people ask me this, you can make that 4 over 1. So then really you're doing negative 3 times negative 4, which is positive 12, over 5 times 1 is 5. So that's an easy way of doing that in your head. Then I'm going to add that 7 to get it to the other side. And I am going to do that part in my calculator. So 12/5 plus 7. 9.4. So that's almost 9.5 if I was trying to go graph that. I could easily estimate it. Coming over here. Passes through these 2 points. Change in y over change in x. Negative 3 to 5. That's going up 8. Because we're switching from a negative to a positive, some people get confused. So all you have to do is 5 minus negative 3. Always start with this one minus this one. And 5 minus negative 3, double negative becomes a plus. 5 plus 3 is 8. Then my change in x's, 7 to 7. Well, that doesn't change at all, so that's 0. Guess what happens when you try and do 8 divided by 0? It gives you an error, because guess what? You can't divide by 0. You can't take something that is 8 inches or 8 feet and divide it into 0 parts. So what we call that is undefined slope. And then I'm going to remind you that we had talked about something called Hoivacks, where the U stands for undefined, and it goes with vertical lines. So that means this is a vertical line. And the equation is written as x equals. So this equation would just be x equals, what's the x value in both of the points? 7. And if you ever see that the x value or the y value is the same on both points, that's going to be your equation. If it's the x that's the same, it'll be x equals. If these two were the same, it would be y equals. Okay, so this kind of goes back to 1.3 a little bit. All right, let's do the back side. Hey, again, I put point slope form at the top just so that you have it there. Parallel lines have the same slope, because if you look at them, they're kind of at the same angle. That's all you need to know about them, maybe other than the fact that they never cross. Okay, perpendicular lines cross at specifically a 90-degree angle, and their slopes are opposite reciprocals. And I'm going to go a little bit outside of the box for that one. Opposite means change the sign. Reciprocals means flip the fraction. So it's going to have an opposite sign, and like instead of 2 over 3, it'll be 3 over 2. Okay, and I'm going to put an example of that down here. So let's say 2/3 and negative 3/2. So see how they switched spots and it became negative? That's an opposite reciprocal. And hopefully that's not brand new, fresh news for you. Here's how we're going to use this. It says, write the equation of the line parallel to negative 2x plus 5. What is the slope of this line? Well, it's ny equals mx plus b. So this is my slope right here. So that means the slope of my new line, since it is parallel, it's going to be the same. So it's also negative 2. Okay? And it says it goes through the point negative 5, 3. So that's your x1, y1. Let's set up point slope form. y minus the y value, 3, equals negative 2, x minus the x value, negative 5. Slope goes in the middle, y minus the y value, x minus the x value. Because of the two negatives, this is going to turn into a plus, and I'm going to multiply the negative 2 through the parentheses. So now I have y minus 3 equals negative 2x, and then negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. We want to move that 3 to the other side. Y equals negative 2x minus 7. And you'll notice this one isn't a decimal at all, but if I were to go through this graph, that would have been like off the graph almost. It would have been hard to tell. It might even be off the graph on certain ones. Okay, so this line and this line are parallel. Notice how they both have the negative 2's, but then this one starts at 5 and this one starts at negative 7. Okay, that's the difference between parallel lines, because they have a different y-intercept. Okay, write the equation of the line perpendicular. So we're going to need to do an opposite reciprocal to 2x plus y equals 2. We can't really tell what the slope of this line is yet, so what I'm going to do is get y by itself. If you're ever given an equation where y is not by itself, that should be your first step. And when I subtract that 2x, it's kind of just going right here before the equal sign, or in between the equal sign and the 2. I can't add them together because they're not like terms. And now I can see that my slope is negative 2. So my new slope is going to be, instead of negative, positive, and instead of 2 over 1, flip that, 1 over 2. You can always put an over 1 on any number. If it's not already a fraction, do that so then you can just flip. Okay, so that's my slope. My x1 is negative 1, and my y1 is 7. So y minus 7 equals the slope, x minus the x value, which is negative 1. And again, because that is a double negative, minus and subtract, or minus and negative, we're going to change that to a plus. And we're going to go ahead and multiply that 1/2 all the way through. Y minus 7 equals 1/2 x. 1/2 times 1 is still 1/2. And then we're going to add that 7 over. So that y is all by itself. 1/2 x plus, and this one's pretty easy. A half plus 7 is going to be 7, and